You're listening to the Viral Volley podcast. Now here's your host, Rob, on the mic.
I wanted to ask you about week 15 action because it seemed that there were a lot of 5-set thrillers, not only in conference tournament play, but also the final week of MPSF and Big West play. I wanted to ask you, were there any particular results that caught your eye during week 15?
Well, the other one in my conference, just so we touch base on it, is, Purdue Fort Wayne going down to McKendree and getting that win in 4. That's a big win for those guys. And certainly, was happy for Rock and certainly, probably sad for Nikki a little bit because they got a great group of older guys on that team too. But, Purdue went down there and capitalized and got a good win that puts them in a place to play Loyola on Wednesday in our other semifinal match. And so probably the 5-setter, Hawaii and Dimitri on the opposite getting 30 kills. I know you were probably there, but that's he lit it up. And, I think I talked about whether or not they had that next weapon for Hawaii. And if he's doing that on the offset of their outsides, doing some nice things, and Boss in the middle, and Theo setting the ball and hitting on 2, like you talked about earlier, Hawaii is going to be really tough in the conference tournament at home as they walk into next week. And so that was certainly a match that caught my eye. I'd probably say, I was watching, and I don't know how much like the Eva steps, because there was that 3-way tie. And so, and those matches that were going on. And I think, Princeton came out with 2 wins, but they ended up being 4th out of that group. And then I think it was Harvard that ended up 2nd, right? It was Harvard that was ended up 2nd, and then you got NJIT at 3rd. And so that was the bye. That was a mumble jumbled mess, you know what I mean, in terms of that. And so, so St. Francis will end up playing Princeton, right? And then the winner of that plays Penn State, and then you got NJIT playing George Mason. George Mason came in off the 6th seed, and so they got their bracket all set up going too at the same time. So
been an exciting week, no doubt, and now officially with all the tournaments in play, should be interesting to see who comes to show up. Which leads me to our next question about week 15. But who are some of the athletes who stuck out? I know you mentioned Demetrius Muklius from Hawaii. I think he heard your challenge on the podcast last episode, and he really took it to heart against my team. But there are some big performances last week. So who caught your eye?
Well, so certainly Dimitri, and I probably don't have some of the other stats in front of me right now, just in terms of some of those other big numbers from those guys. But I think for Purdue Fort Wayne, I was talking about them. Their pins did a nice job for them. Dietrich and their Chile guy, they both had some nice numbers that put them in a position to get the win for them. But I don't have some of the other ones in front of me right now in terms of that on the Big West in the MPSF right now. So,
well, regardless, it's gonna be a fun week here in week 16, which is all the tournaments all in play. And
well, you and me were talking about this. So it's a curious format, though, right? So like you've got the Big West and the MPSF, and you got a bye for UCLA, and then the other one's playing in, and they've got 3 matches over the course of 4 days or whatever it is, and then you got the Big West tournament in Hawaii, and they've got 3 matches over 3 days. So it's certainly a gauntlet of volleyball, which is going to give any volleyball fan a ton of matches to watch. And you got our semifinal on Wednesday, and Penn State's got the same kind of 3 matches over 4 days, or the EVA tournament's got. So it's like a lot of volleyball between Wednesday and Saturday, which is exciting if you're a fan, because I'm sure you can find it on a lot of different web streams or ESPN3 and some of that stuff, which will be exciting.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's I actually was talking to David Hunt earlier, and all the MPSF is going to be streamed on flowvolleyball.tv, which is a subscription service. And I know a lot of your matches end up on ESPN Plus, which is great if you got the subscription there. Yeah. But the fact that it's available, I mean, the $4.99 is not a bad price to watch the volleyball for the month.
Well, yeah, it gives us an avenue, and we're all going to pump it on NCAA.com, right? As we all got to pump it on there to make sure it gets out. So,
yep. All right. Well, Coach Dan Friend of Lewis, best of luck to you in your semifinal matchup against Ball State, and Looking forward to chatting with you next week on the actual episode of the podcast, assuming we're not all hammered from working so hard this week.
That sounds great. Well, Rob, I appreciate it again. Thanks for all your work.
Well, let's go into the week 15 results. There was quite a bit, and it ended up being a pretty wacky week with some conference tournaments starting, but man, it was a week for 5-set thrillers without a doubt. But I wanted to ask you what particular results stuck out in your eye.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the podcast. I've been critical of Hawaii scheduling because it could hurt them at the end, right? That could be something that is a knock on them come tournament selection. But I personally think they're going to win their conference tournament. But the play of their opposite was pretty impressive. You know, you were probably front and center for that one at Irvine. And I sort of laughed.
ABCA Player of the Week and Big West Player of the Week, Demetrios Muklias.
Yeah. Well, I sort of laughed, because they did they sweep them night one, then won 5 night 2?
Yep.
So so I was glad that we're not the only team that has that problem in the country of sweeping a team and then going 5 the next night. But his play is pretty impressive. And for people that don't know, Milan Sarkovic has the history of developing good opposites. And if you don't believe me, just look at Serbia's long list of good opposites that they've had at the national team level. So he's done a nice job there, and he's done a nice job at Hawaii. And I think Stein and Tilburg was the biggest beneficiary of that, right? He played opposite, was an All-American opposite, and then they moved him to outside hitter, and they developed him as a passer, and he becomes a great outside hitter. That match sort of stood out. And then BYU going 5 against UCLA, being up 2-0. Obviously, I've watched that match a lot, but they made a setting change against Stanford night 2, and Noah Hain, I believe it is now setting for them, doing a nice job, and it seems like he's keeping those pin hitters in rhythm. So I've been saying all year that they're going to be a tough out in the MPSF playoffs. Unfortunately, we have to play them first round. So hopefully they're not too tough in and out, but it's going to be a good match because they're playing good volleyball. Yeah. And then Stanford at our place, going 5 with us. And we've talked about Will Rotman and just what he's done. And when I looked at the MPSF stats this morning doing the MPSF voting, he hit like 330 or 340 in the MPSF season. And he carries such a big load for them. Everyone knows he's going to get the ball, and to still be that efficient is impressive. And then Dan's team being down 0-2 at home and coming back to win in 5. So theirs probably means a little bit more because the other matches I talked about were about to go into playoffs, but that's a tough quarterfinal match, and they pull it out. So
well, was with all those 5-set thrillers, so that weren't in conference tournaments, that's Big West and MPSF. The teams that really pushed the 5 that were I guess you'd say the underdogs in those matches, do you feel like they're playing with a certain attitude? They got nothing to lose and they want to go with good momentum into the conference tournament?
Yeah, it's tough to say, right? I don't know how everybody feels at this point in the season. Definitely being on the other side of it with Stanford, it felt like they came out in set 3 and we're just like, screw it. Like we've lost 5 straight sets here. Like, we got nothing to lose. And when things got rolling, they were tough to stop. Again, I don't know because I'm not in other people's gyms. I do hear from coaches that, hey, we just got to be good at the end. We just got to be good in our conference tournament to get in, which is accurate. So I don't know if other coaches have been juggling some lineups, trying to find the right lineup or whatever. So we'll see.
All right. Well, it's Dave Hunt of Pepperdine, who will be debuting at Poly Pavilion in the MPSF tournament as they take on the number 6 seed BYU, and that's on Wednesday. From what I understand, it'll be through subscription only, flowvolleyball.tv. So be sure to watch the live stat or find out if anyone's got an Instagram live going. So
I think we would get in trouble if that happened. Flow would come after us.
All right, Dave. Well, good luck. I look forward to seeing you on court at Poly Pavilion. Hopefully for a long journey for you in the MPSF tournament.
Yeah, hopefully.
So, Jay, an exciting week 15. I didn't expect it to be as exciting as it was. A bunch of 5-set thrillers, some teams in conference play, some teams already in their tournament. But what were some of the key matchups that stuck out for you in week 15?
I think there was one match that stuck out to me. In fact, it's a few matches in our conference, and that's the University of Charleston figuring a few things out. Harvard is the second seed in our tournament. They're a good team, but the University of Charleston figured out a way to beat them twice. And, then they go into their last home match against St. Francis, and they ended up beating them. And Charleston's one of those teams that's got a few good players on there. And I think early in the year, they were kind of figuring some things out and maybe weren't executing very high. And then all of a sudden, they get to play spoiler a little bit. And that's pretty cool. So I was pretty happy with that result. The other one is, PFW going into McKendree in the quarterfinal round of the MIVAs. I think historically they were 1-7 playing at the McKendree gym and ended up pulling that one out in 5. And that's, Rock's got his team playing at a pretty good level right now. And so I think they might be a little bit of a sleeper if you're not paying attention. They're going into Loyola this weekend and they like playing there. If they're not paying attention, PFW could see their way into the finals of the MIVA conference. And you look at the other side, and that's Ball State and Lewis. Ball State obviously is the favorite in that, but Lewis just beat Ohio State in 5 in their gym. And, Lewis is one of those teams that's got a couple of big weapons. They bring it from the service line. But if you look at the potential matchup of Ball State versus Purdue Fort Wayne in the MIVA finals, that is going to be an absolute dogfight because those teams are historically rivals, being the only two in Indiana. So that could be a lot of fun to watch.
Yep. Well, with this next week coming up, where some teams are in their semis of their tournaments, but what do you expect we'll see in the different conference tournaments?
Yeah, I think there's 2 to 3 teams in each conference that could be the winners of the conference. So if you start with the Big West, I think Hawaii, Long Beach, and Santa Barbara are the 3 teams. And Irvine's sneaky good. Sonny Franceschi has picked up a couple of things over the course of the year. He's hitting at a real high clip, real aggressive from the service line. In Irvine, if they're clicking, if they can get some production from their opposite Heno, they could be a team that could be a spoiler as well. But I think it's going to be Santa Barbara as the spoiler, but I think it's going to be Long Beach and Hawaii in the finals. It's at Hawaii. They always play well there. And so I think those 2 teams are going to be the ones there. If you look at the MPSF, I think it's going to be UCLA and USC, but Grand Canyon is my spoiler team. And because they have a 2-headed monster in Janky and Gianni, those 2 guys are bringing it. And if they can get a little help from their opposite, they could be really tough to play. And everything's going to be at UCLA. So again, it's at neutral ground. So I think Grand Canyon's my spoiler, but I think it's going to be USC and UCLA in the finals of that. And I think right now UCLA is just a little bit above USC in terms of his execution. You look at the MIVA, and again, I talked about Ball State. And I think it's going to be Ball State. And who knows what's going to happen in the other one between Loyola and PFW. I think it could be Loyola that wins it at home, but don't be surprised if Purdue Fort Wayne pulls that one out. You look at the EIVA, and obviously Penn State's the favorite, but NJIT, Princeton, Harvard, they're all really good teams, and I know that we're the 6th seed, but even we feel good about the way we're playing. So, but I think Princeton and I think Penn State, they're going to meet in the semifinals. That's going to be a big match. I think the winner of that could be the team that pulls it out. And you go to the Conference Carolinas, you got Mount Olive, you got North Greenville, and you got King. I like the way North Greenville's playing right now. I like what Mount Olive has to offer. If Aziz is healthy, if there's any way to get him back up to speed, they're going to be a dangerous team to face. I'd like their chances. I don't know if he's coming back or not. And if he doesn't, then I think North Greenville is going to be the team that comes out of the Conference Carolinas.
Yep. Well, I'm going to take this opportunity, since I didn't get to communicate what I was thinking with the other guys I got to speak with, but being that you're the last person I got to talk to, since we're doing this asynchronously
Nice.
with all
Well
the
done.
guys. So, but in the Big West, it's spoiler alert for every match, I feel like, because if you remember last year, UC San Diego came in, played spoiler, maker, and then UC Santa Barbara as well. Those two in the conference final in Hawaii, and everyone knows what happened there.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that is one scary matchup, and you cannot even sleep on Northridge because Daniel Wetter and their freshman setter, his name is escaping me, but he was so solid, even though they were a month short on training for the year because of COVID related reasons. They had a delay being in the gym, not even playing, in the gym.
Yeah.
And they went to competition in February. And Coach Jeff Campbell has done a really good job with those guys. And Wetter, I think it seems like the last 10 matches, he maybe has 3 errors. Yeah, I mean, look at his hitting percentage. Look how many kills he's got.
Yeah.
It doesn't block a lot, but offensively, amazing.
I think you're right. Wetter is a kid that could be a national team candidate maybe in the future. I think the challenge with that is he's a middle blocker, and you don't win with middle blockers, you win with pin hitters. And Northridge right now doesn't have any pin hitters that stand out that make Wetter be able to take a little pressure off him.
Yep. And then you jump over to the favorites, which you mentioned, Santa Barbara. I mean, Paragas has been running really good offense. You got my goodness, Wilcox, Ryan Wilcox.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just been such a stable foundation for that team.
Yep.
So you're seeing Tian Zhao, their Chinese opposite, really pick up his play as of late, which has been the difference maker for the Gauchos. You go into Hawaii and AVCA, reigning AVCA player of the week and now Big West player of the week, Demetrius Muklius, lit up this weekend. 31 kills on Saturday night, hit close to 600. Jakob Tella on fire. Philip Humler now in the mix with Chaz Galloway, and Schuard's been playing really good defense. Yeah. Then you go to Long Beach. I mean, you've heard his name so many times. I'll say it again, Alex Nikolov. But you can't even, if you cover him, if you overcommit to him, there's a guy named Spencer Olivier who's lighting people up. Yep. So, and Aiden Knipes said a really.
And don't forget about Clark Goldbott.
Oh yeah. That's right.
The kid's no slouch himself, right? No, that's a really, really good team. And I think Long Beach's only challenge is going to be if Knight becomes one-dimensional, then it becomes a little bit easier for teams to key in on a couple of players. But you're right. I mean, you've still got 3 weapons that are really, really dangerous, and you maybe don't need the middles to be that offensive in order to still win matches.
Yeah. Well, then you definitely have to look at Hawaii. And just they are trending upward. The last 4 matches, they've just played like really good ball, super quick and spread out offense. And you have to respect Jakob Tella offensively because he'll come in like he's going to come in with a hitting approach and set a shoot set, or it's like you got an offensive threat in a setter that's 6'5", 6'6". So doing some
and a lefty doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Now, the MPSF is where I get a little shady in as far as I didn't get to see a lot of the teams play, but the teams have been consistent. Yeah, you got your UCLA, USC's had a remarkable year. Gallus and Coburn, I got to make sure, Sam Coburn have been playing really well along with Chris Hall. And I got to give a shout out to Paxson, their libero. He's really kept them, he's that extra effort that he has on the court has really kept a lot of plays alive for SC, and that extra gusto is what got those winning points for that team. And when it came in the clutch, UCLA powerhouse, Grand Canyon, as you said, Jenky Gianni, Hugo Fisher, he steps in as Oppo. If he can contribute double-digit kills, that team's going to be hard to beat. Yeah. And then Pepperdine's got their own 3-headed beast when they can light it all up at the same time, and Steele, Jasper, and Wickens are Mighty Might, 5'10", maybe 5'11", who's been getting it done, who's had some good offensive nights. And Stanford, the wild card this season, the team that was on the brink of being eliminated from NCAA play, and Will Rotman's decided to pull out his cannon for the tail end of the season. So, I know that there's still Concordia has potential. They upset SC. It's you never know what's going to happen on the West Coast. So that's all I want to add. I'm going to slow my roll when it comes to the other conferences, but I do need to say congratulations on Mark Pavlik, EIVA Coach of the Year again. And just because he's your mentor and just an overall great guy. So
Pav is one of the best. I've been very lucky and blessed to have worked with him for 6 or 7 years. And, he's a class act from top to bottom. And no one was more deserving of that award than him. And I'll be honest with you. I gave the coach Luke a shout out at Charleston for Coach of the Year in our conference, only because the guy was not paid $1 to coach this year. He was waiting for his visa to go through, and the guy was literally non-existent in terms of a paycheck for the last number of months. And that's to be commended, because that means you're dedicated to what you're doing and giving the guys the best season possible. But yeah, Pav is a great human being, and he's put together a pretty good run here. So it'll be interesting to see how far he takes it this year.
Yeah. And maybe even next year with those 4 guys coming back. I'm sure you're excited about that.
You had to remind me of that.
Well, Jay, I appreciate you taking the time, especially since you're preparing for your quarterfinal matchup over in Happy Valley, which is a great place to be.
It's a labor of love, my friend. I love doing it.
All right. Best of luck to you.
Thanks.